Hi. Hello. How are you this evening? Good, I hope. I didn't record last night because I felt bad and sad. Eddie Van Halen passed away yesterday. And I was in Hollywood. I used to live in Hollywood at the time that Van Halen was pretty much at the height of their career. And I have a Van Halen story that I was going to tell later after this whole vlogging endeavor got more along. I had a few more, after I had a few more videos under my belt, I was going to tell you some of the stories from when I lived in Hollywood. But considering that Eddie passed away yesterday, I thought I'd go ahead and tell you my Van Halen story tonight. It does not include Eddie, but it does include another band member of his, David Lee Roth. And it's, I also have another story, a little story that I'll tell you at the end that is about, I think, a little bit about Valerie Bertinelli. Um, but it's a simple story. There's not a lot to it. Basically, I used to have a Dodge Duster, and I used to live just across Sunset from the Viper Room. So I used to live across the street from the Viper Room. That's the most famous location to give you an idea of where I used to live. I used to live on Larrabee. If you were to go to the Viper Room and cross Sunset going north, I lived in an apartment building just across the street on Larrabee on the left side. And I have some interesting stories about that time that I got to see some people and do some things that were pretty phenomenal. Um, Eddie Van Halen and, in fact, Van Halen. So Van Halen had just, I think, a couple of years before, maybe a few years before, they were such a big deal that they had played on the rooftop of the Tower Records, which was literally 2 blocks down from Larrabee. And so that's the area. So you have some idea of what I'm talking about. That's the area where I lived. And I had a Dodge Duster in the day. Was it a Dodge Duster? There's a gas station on the right-hand side of Sunset Boulevard, and you have to go straight up this really tall hill. And I think that I'm not. What street is that? So I think the cross street is Clark, Clark and Sunset. I think and it would be the southwest corner, and that particular gas station, uh, I believe it has behind it an amazing view of all of Hollywood. It's like, but they bought it and built a gas station there. It's right in the area of where St. John's Club is, and Bellagio, and just some really great, Chateau Montmartre is up in that area. So it's a place where, the Roxy is there, the Pantages, Whiskey A Go Go, all of these places where Van Halen performed and hung out this was their hang. This was where all of their connections were, where their community was, where they would practice, where where they would do dress rehearsals, where they would have their gigs, have their friends, and just this was, as they used to say in the 60s, this was their scene. So I just happened to live in the area. I was trying my hand at acting. I was somewhat successful. I was in a couple of movies and a few commercials in my life, and so far, and it's fun more than anything else. People really do that because it's just fun. Because every once in a while you run into someone who is more of a headline star, and you can say, "Oh, I saw this person today," or "I saw that person." And on this day, I had pulled into the gas station, and I was filling up my tank, and I want to say it was the white duster, but if it was the white duster, then yeah, that makes sense for where. No, then I was living a little further down on Sunset Boulevard, same area. And because I had a girlfriend who was my roommate, and not, I mean, a platonic girlfriend, but she was my roommate. She was English, and she ended up being I met her shortly after she came to Hollywood from England, and she ended up being the assistant for Harry Winkler at Paramount Studios, and I believe she still is today. So I'll just say her first name because I want to say a shout out. Hi Jetta, how are you? It's Angela. So back to my story. I had pulled into the this, I don't know whether it was a mobile or what the name of the gas station was. Maybe it's even changed hands since then. Parked my car at one of the pumps, the first island, and I parked it. I even remember where I parked it. I parked it the last pump up on that first island. So I get out of the car. I pay for my gas, and in those days you couldn't just stick your bank card into the pump. Now that's optional, but you could only pay with cash at the window in those days. Started to fill it up, and I turned. Okay, you can't write this. Not only was it David Lee Roth, but I think he knew eventually, whoever this girl was, that was I think he knew eventually that she would turn and see that he was the David Lee Roth. And I think that he was interested in, even though he didn't know me from Adam, he still was interested in my reaction. And so he was standing there like Superman, but without the hands on the hips. He was just standing there. He had on, from head to toe, he had on, well, I'll tell you from toe to head because that's saves the most dramatic for last. He had on cowboy boots, the most faded, torn up, perfectly faded, perfectly torn. In other words, where they were torn, the white thread just came out and was blowing in the wind like feathers. And he had that going on. He had a nice, thick buckle, and he was shirtless. Nice golden tanned, shirtless David Lee Roth. I'm not making this up. And his hair was long in those days. His hair was like down to his elbows. While I was looking at him, his hair was blowing back in the breeze. And of course, because he's David Lee Roth and he's dope and his life is dope, his hair was, the breeze was even blowing in the right direction, so his hair was blowing back off of his shoulders. and he had on his eyes were big and blue, and he had on a cowboy hat, kind of one of those straw cowboy hats with feathers, and it had with like the kind that's made out of straw, and it has like that kind of a weave. There's a name for it, but it was like that curled up, kind of curled up on each side, and with the thin leather. I mean, I remember every detail to this day because that was David Lee Roth. You don't forget that. And it had those. It had the thin leather ties that went around the hat, like the headband. But then it was tied on the side, and it had these long leather ties, really light, like suede, like two of them, and they each had a poof of white feathers at the end of each one of them. And I just stood there and looked at David Lee Roth, and I just remember memorizing every single detail about this perfect. He was a perfect. He's a perfect human being. He was. I mean, he was like 20 something then, and he was in the prime of everything, and he was a sight to behold. And I could barely move, let alone. But I did. I just tried to act cool, like I was part of the whole Hollywood community, and it wasn't a big deal at all for me to be seeing David Lee Roth standing there like like a perfect rock star, in every way. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my 20s and of living in Hollywood, of seeing this person and seeing him like a magazine photo, like a portrait, like a portrait, like a photographic portrait. And especially with the passing of Eddie yesterday, it is my honor to pass along this memory to you and to finally be able to document it, because it was a gift. The universe just basically gave me a gift that day. So that's my story, my Van Halen story. And the other little story that I have is of when one day, it's related to Van Halen. It's really more about Valerie Bertinelli in a one step away way, which is that when I first arrived at Hollywood, there was a really great place to get chicken. It was like a kebab shop. It was like a falafel shop. And it was on the corner of Larrabee and Santa Monica Boulevard. It was on the corner of, what street is that? It was on the corner of Highland and Santa Monica Boulevard. It was a large market, and it had like a strip on both sides, like this way, and this way, and say that out here this is Highland Boulevard, and this way is Santa Monica Boulevard, and that would be north, that would be east, that would be west, and that would be south. No, that would be south. So I had just gotten, it was a kind of a summery spring day, and I was in the mood for, they have great broiled chicken there. So I was sitting at one of their tables, little tables, with my chicken and my orange. It was like an orange malted. and in walks Mackenzie Phillips. And I just sort of watched her walk up to the counter, and really pretty in person. She had shiny, dark red hair, cut in kind of a shag bob. It was really cute. And she ordered chicken to go. And she waited for her order. It was probably a good 5 minutes while I'm watching every move that Mackenzie Phillips is making to see, what she's about, and oh, there's Mackenzie Phillips, and so that she's adjusting her sunglasses. Again, didn't say anything, I never do. And so on the way out, in that day, my hair was auburn that year. My hair was auburn. Um, I had bangs. I'm about 5'2", and I've always been a little plumper than I wanted to be. And I had I have kind of a soft features, and uh, I, in a way, I kind of felt I always felt like I identified a little bit with the type of person that Valerie Bertinelli is, although she's universe is more beautiful than, us regular people. But I sort of identified with her. And I, so I'm sitting there eating my chicken, and Mackenzie Phillips has gotten her bag of food, and she walks by, and I think maybe I'm like a distant cousin or something. Sometimes I wonder, like a fifth cousin or a fourth cousin of Valerie's, because I have been told in my life that people, I remind them of her, and which is super flattering to me. And Mackenzie Phillips stopped, and she said to me, "Is that good?" She said, "Well, how's that chicken? Is it good?" And I, of course, the way this is how my life goes. I had just taken a really big bite of chicken, and I was hungry. And I, of course, had taken a large bite of my chicken, and I couldn't talk. So she's asking me how the chicken is, and I looked up and I'm going, mm-hmm. And that's all I said. That's because, of course, my life is not dope, and things don't always work out for me like they do for other people. Um, my karma is more normal, and I guess that's just how it is. It's the stars I was born under or something. Although I've got to admit, I am very blessed. I have my health, and I have friends, great family. I live in a beautiful town, and I do this for a living. And I have you guys to thank for that. So some of my stars are definitely aligned. But that is the end of that story. She just said, "Oh, good. That's nice." And then she kind of one of these and then she turned and walked out the door, and and that's okay, Mackenzie. I love you. So those are my two stories, and I hope I was able to bring some light to you this evening regarding a very sad subject of losing our Eddie Van Halen. His presence on this earth. His presence on this earth will be missed, I know, by all of us. I know that his songs were part of all of our lives, and his wonderful personality and stage presence and interviews and concerts and songs on the radio, and just when I listen to Van Halen, I remember Hollywood. I remember my acting days. I remember the ocean. I remember certain friends. I remember certain, just barbecues, parties, events, certain. It represents a certain time in my life. And he represents a certain time in my life and in our lives. And I know that he will never leave our hearts, and this loss will never leave our hearts. We will just find a place for it. So, hope you all have an awesome rest of your week. So, take care, everyone, and find things to make yourself happy. And let's count our blessings. Life is good, and it is a joy and a blessing to have, and it is definitely worth living. Till next time, this was my episode, and I'm so glad that you joined me. Good night.